I canceled my daughter's concert after she saved for months, forced her to babysit my stepson. Instead, let my wife trash talk her to her teachers, then grounded her for crying. Now she's cut us off completely and abandoned her brother, and I don't understand why. I'll start from the beginning. I have a 14-year-old daughter, Tasman. Her mom died when she was 8. It wasn't sudden, but it was fast enough that Tasman never got a real chance to understand what happened before it was already over. Those years after were rough for both of us. I tried to be the stable parent, the one who kept things consistent, but there was a long stretch where I was barely doing more than going through the motions. I didn't physically neglect her, but I shut down emotionally. I'm not pretending I was some perfect widower dad who handled it gracefully. I wasn't. Then, when Tasman was around 11, I met my now wife, Monique. She has a son, Tristan, who's 11 now. Back then he was a very shy 8-year-old who clung to his mom constantly. Monique is the type who wants to be seen as the perfect parent at all times. Pinterest crafts, homemade lunches, the whole mom of the year thing. I'll be honest, that stability was comforting for me. I was lonely. I ignored stuff I shouldn't have, like the way she'd comment on Tasman's habits or clothes in this weird competitive way, or how she'd act like Tristan's needs were automatically the priority because he was younger and more sensitive. I kept telling myself it was just two families adjusting to each other. For a while, things were okay. Not great, not horrible, just average blended family stuff. But around the time Tasman turned 13, she really started coming into her own: new friends, new hobbies, new interests. One of them was violin. She had played since she was little, but she suddenly dove into it again. She started saving money every chance she got. Babysitting neighbors' kids, tutoring younger students, selling cookies she baked, cleaning out garages. I kept asking what the big goal was. She'd just say she wanted to get herself something special. Turns out, she'd been saving for months for a concert. Not some arena pop thing. This was a memorial performance for a violinist her mom used to love. I didn't know that when she first started talking about it. I didn't realize how much it meant to her, or how it wasn't just some fun night out, but something tied to her grief and memories. When she finally told me she'd saved enough and bought the tickets herself, she looked proud in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She asked if I could drive her and pick her up after that was it. Nothing complicated. Then everything fell apart the week before the concert. Monique and I run a small tutoring service from home. It brings in decent money, but it also means our schedule is weird and very dependent on client expectations. That week we had a weekend retreat planned with a group of parents who wanted academic planning for their kids. It's not something we could just cancel without blowing up several contracts. Tristan was supposed to have his regular babysitter, but on the morning of the retreat she canceled. Tristan doesn't handle sudden changes. Well, he spirals fast. He gets overwhelmed and panics. When that happens, he can't be left alone for more than a few minutes, and he refuses to stay with people he isn't familiar with. Monique started panicking. She kept pacing and saying we were going to lose clients, that Tristan couldn't handle being left with someone new, that we couldn't take him with us because he'd melt down and derail the whole event. I kept trying to think of alternatives, but everything she said shot down the next idea before it even formed. Eventually, she just said that Tasman could stay home with Tristan since they needed bonding time anyway. Tasman had been up early that morning getting her clothes ready for the concert. She'd even ironed them, which she never does. I told her we needed to talk, and the second she saw my face, she already knew. She just went quiet and asked me not to cancel on her. She was shaking. She told me she'd saved for months, that this was important. She said she'd already told her aunt and her violin teacher she was going. I told her we couldn't risk losing clients, and that she was part of the family, and sometimes that meant helping. I'm not proud of that line. It sounded reasonable in the moment, but looking back, it was like I threw her under the bus to keep everyone else calm. She watched me cancel the plans with her. She turned around, closed her bedroom door, and the next thing I heard was her trying to muffle herself. She tried so hard not to let me hear her crying. That part still sits with me. I grounded her later for having an attitude, but honestly, I think she just stopped talking altogether because what was the point? And while I was dealing with all this, I had no idea Monique had gone to a teacher conference without telling me. She told the staff that Tasman was acting entitled and unstable. She said Tasman used being motherless to get sympathy. She mentioned savings bonds from her mom like Tasman was throwing money around. When one of the teachers emailed me privately after the meeting, I didn't even believe it at first. It sounded too out of character. But she said she felt uncomfortable with how Monique talked and thought I should know. By the time I figured this out, Tasman was already shutting down. When I tried confronting her about her behavior, which was mostly just her barely speaking to me, she broke down again. She said she felt invisible. She said she missed her mom. She said she worked so hard and I didn't even ask why it mattered. I felt overwhelmed and defensive and told her she was trying to guilt trip me. I grounded her again. I don't know why I thought that would help. That night she packed a bag and went to my brother's house. Now it's been weeks. I know canceling that concert hurt her. I know grounding her for crying was awful. I know I didn't ask enough questions, but I don't understand how we got from that to her moving out and cutting everyone off like we're strangers. Update 1. So first off, I went to see my daughter at my brother's place like everyone suggested. I didn't want to show up unannounced and corner her, so I called ahead and asked if she'd even be okay with me coming. My brother said she didn't seem thrilled, but she didn't say no, so I took that as a good sign. I wish I had prepared myself better, because the whole visit felt like a punch I wasn't expecting. She was just blank. She acted normal enough to be polite, but not in a warm way, more like the way you'd talk to a coworker you don't know well and don't want to know well. No eye contact unless she had to, no reaching for a hug, nothing, and that honestly freaked me out more than if she had screamed at me. I tried to ask if she'd think about coming home, or at least if she wanted to talk privately, but she shut that down immediately. She said she wasn't comfortable being alone with me and would only talk if someone else was present, and before anyone jumps to conclusions, no, this isn't about being scared that I'd hurt her or anything extreme. She didn't look nervous, she looked guarded, like she wanted a witness so nothing could be twisted around on her. That part stung because I've never done anything like that to her, but I get that from her perspective the last few months probably felt like I was constantly siding against her. After she left the room, my brother sat down with me and basically unloaded months worth of stuff that I didn't know about, and I'm not blaming him at all for not telling me sooner. He said he assumed I already knew and just chose not to deal with it, which honestly tells me a lot about how I must have looked from the outside. He told me my daughter had been struggling for a long time. Stuff I thought she was acting dramatic about, or just being a teenager, apparently wasn't that simple. It turns out Tristan had been going into her room constantly, even after she asked him to stop, and Monique brushed it off as him needing to bond. And yeah, I knew he sometimes went in there, but I didn't realize the extent of it. My brother said my daughter practically lived with her door barricaded on weekends she was with me. He also told me something that honestly made my stomach drop. Monique went through my daughter's journal. She told my brother she was looking for signs of dangerous behavior because she thought my daughter was too emotional lately. Hearing that made my skin crawl, because even if her intentions weren't malicious, that's such a massive violation, and I didn't know. I had absolutely no clue she did that. And then there was the thing about the teacher conference. My daughter's teachers apparently got a very different picture of her because of what Monique said. I already knew about some of it after the teacher emailed me, but I didn't realize how much my daughter had been dealing with at school since then. My brother said she's been getting treated differently, more like she's fragile or unstable, and she's been mortified about it. I had no good explanation for any of it. All I could say was that I genuinely didn't know. Hearing it all laid out like that made me realize why she's so distant now. After that conversation, I went home and confronted Monique. I expected defensiveness, and yeah, there was some of that, but she also fell apart in a way I didn't fully expect. She said she was overwhelmed and felt like she was constantly being compared to my late wife, and that she felt like she was never enough for my daughter. I get that insecurity, I really do, but the way she handled it made everything worse. I told her that she had crossed multiple lines, and she owed my daughter a serious apology. I also told her that the stuff she said to the teachers was not only inappropriate, but damaging. She cried and said I was choosing my daughter over our marriage. And maybe it sounded harsh, but I told her I wasn't choosing anything that's my kid. She comes first. She always has. I should have made that clearer sooner. I also fixed the room situation. I told Tristan he wasn't allowed in her room at all anymore. I didn't scold him because he's a kid and didn't understand the boundaries, but I made it clear that it wasn't acceptable anymore. The last thing that happened this week was maybe the biggest wake-up call. One of the teachers sent me a recording from the hallway. I don't know how she got it, but she said she felt I needed to hear it because the written summary didn't come close to what was actually said. Watching that audio file load made my stomach twist. I honestly thought maybe the teacher exaggerated a bit when she emailed me. Turns out she actually downplayed it. Hearing my wife talk about my daughter so casually and so cynically, I don't even know how to describe the feeling I had. My daughter never even got a chance for her side to be heard because my wife had already painted her as some manipulative problem child. Update 2. My brother was the one who pushed for some kind of mediation because he said he was tired of watching me bounce between trying to fix things with my daughter and trying not to let my marriage fall apart at the same time. I didn't want to agree to something so formal sounding, but he made it clear that if I wanted any real chance of getting my daughter back into my life in a healthy way, I needed someone neutral to sit between us and keep things from falling apart the second emotions got too high. He found a family counselor who does these structured sessions. It wasn't court. Nobody was filing anything. It was just supposed to be a space where everyone could talk without things being shouted over. I didn't want Monique there. I already knew that anything involving her would become about her, and I wanted it to be about my daughter. But my brother said it would make things worse if I didn't at least invite her, because then she'd claim I was keeping her out of family decisions. I honestly didn't have the energy to argue, so the counselor said she could come, but only if everyone agreed. The problem started right away because my daughter wouldn't even get out of the car when she saw Monique in the waiting room. She didn't yell or cry, she just froze and said she wasn't walking in if Monique was anywhere near the room. It wasn't attitude. It wasn't dramatic. It was like she had already rehearsed this in her head and wasn't budging. I could tell from her face that she was scared, not angry. I told Monique she had to leave, and I wasn't stern or cruel about it. I just explained that this was obviously too much for my daughter right now, and she needed space. Monique immediately fell into tears, loud enough that people looked over. She kept insisting that my daughter hated her and that I always take her side, and the whole thing turned into a scene before we even made it inside the room. It was embarrassing. I was holding the door for my daughter while my wife cried in the hallway like I just kicked her out of the family. I felt everyone's eyes on us, and even then, my daughter wouldn't move until Monique was completely gone. Once we finally sat down inside with the counselor, it started off awkward. I didn't know where to look, and my daughter wouldn't make eye contact with me. My brother sat on the couch like he was bracing for a storm. The counselor asked my daughter why she didn't want to come home, and she didn't hesitate at all. She said everything plainly, like she had already said it to herself 100 times. She said, I only pay attention to her when things are calm, but the second something goes wrong with Tristan, or something stresses Monique out, she becomes the one who needs to adjust. She said she felt like this live-in backup adult who was supposed to step in whenever Tristan couldn't handle something. She talked about how humiliating the thing at school was, and how teachers look at her differently now. She said it isn't one moment that pushed her out of the house. It's everything together. All the times she felt invisible or dismissed. All the times she tried to explain something and got told she was being dramatic. She said the concert wasn't even the worst part. It was just the moment she realized I wasn't going to pick her. Not over anything. Hearing that was rough, but what hit me hardest was when she said she didn't feel safe telling me things anymore. Not physically unsafe, but unsafe as in she had no idea if I would take her side or make her feel smaller for being upset. She said she didn't trust me to protect her from things inside the house, and honestly, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know how to defend that, because I knew exactly what she was talking about. I tried to explain my perspective, that I was overwhelmed, that Tristan's meltdowns always derailed everything, that I wasn't trying to choose anyone over her. None of it landed. She just kept looking at the floor and shaking her head. I've never seen my daughter shut down like that. Not in years, maybe not ever. After the session ended, the counselor pulled me aside privately. I thought she was going to give me some general parenting advice or tell me to try family therapy. Instead, she said that my daughter isn't acting out. She's reacting to a situation that's been emotionally draining for her for a long time. She used the word trauma, which hit me harder than anything else that happened that day. I knew things were bad, but I didn't think they were that bad. Update 3. I don't know if Monique panicked or if she just couldn't stand the idea that she wasn't in control anymore. Either way, she made everything 10 times worse without me even realizing she was planning anything. I run a tutoring business out of my office, and normally Monique helps with the administrative stuff. It's never been an issue. She knows the families, they know her, and everyone keeps things professional. At least that's how it used to be. The morning after the mediation, she showed up at the building out of nowhere. I didn't even know she was coming. I was sitting with a student going over his assignments when I heard noise in the hall. At first I assumed it was Tristan, because sometimes she drops him off if he's having a rough day. But then I heard her crying loudly. The kind of crying that makes everyone look up. My assistant tried to calm her down, but she wasn't listening. She kept going on about how the family was falling apart and how my daughter had turned everyone against her clients were walking past her. Some parents I've known for years gave me these awkward looks like they didn't know where to stand. It was humiliating. I had a kid in the room staring at the door while I was trying to redirect him to his work, but it was pointless. Everyone heard her. I eventually had to step outside and guide her back into the car. She didn't calm down until she realized I wasn't entertaining any conversation with her in the parking lot. My assistant handled the rest of the day because I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about how many people saw that, how many were going to talk about it, how this would swing back on Tasman again if any teachers or parents connected the dots. By the time I got home, I assumed the worst was over. I didn't even get through the door before Tristan ran to me shaking. He was in full panic. I've seen him overwhelmed before, but this was different. He could barely breathe. I picked him up and tried to steady him. He kept grabbing at my shirt like he was drowning. I got him to sit with me on the couch, just holding on to me until his breathing slowed. That's when Monique came into the room. Instead of checking on him or helping, she asked why he went to me first. She acted like he betrayed her. She said the panic attack was caused by Tasman filling his head with things, because apparently that's the newest explanation for everything. Listening to her say that, while this kid was still trembling in my arms, made something snap in me. Later that night, after I finally got Tristan settled, our neighbor came over to drop something off. She must have noticed we weren't doing well because she hesitated before handing me the package, and then said she wanted to tell me something. She apologized first, which made me nervous. Then she said she needed me to know that Monique had been talking about me for months, not in a harmless way, but in a very specific, targeted way. She had been telling people I didn't support her emotionally, that she had to carry the household, that I was too soft with Tasman, that Tasman was unstable. She even said Monique hinted that I favored my daughter because I felt guilty about her mom. It sounded rehearsed, like she wasn't venting but planting ideas everywhere she went. That was the moment everything lined up. I went back inside and told her we needed to talk. I said she needed to get into therapy or I was filing for separation. I said she wasn't allowed to speak to my daughter in any form. I told her I was taking Tristan to stay with my brother for a few days because he needed a calm environment. I was not asking, I was telling. Her face went blank, cold, like she had completely shut off. She asked if this meant I was choosing my daughter over our marriage. She said it slowly, like she already knew the answer, and I told her the truth. I said I should have chosen my daughter from the start, and I was correcting that now before I lost her for good. She didn't speak after that. She walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and didn't come out again that night. I sat on the couch until morning trying to figure out how everything got this far. It wasn't just one bad moment or one bad argument or one canceled concert. It was years of small choices that built up until my daughter finally hit her limit. I'm preparing for separation if this continues. I'm preparing for conversations that won't be easy. But I'm done trying to keep a family together by sacrificing the one person who already lost more than any of us. Final update. The first major step was filing for separation. I didn't do it lightly. I don't enjoy legal battles, and I didn't want to drag Tristan or Tasman into anything more traumatic than they already were. But after the blowout argument the night before, after Monique screamed that I never loved her, tried to guilt Tristan into picking sides, and called me emotionally abusive, I had no choice. I recorded it all not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof that Tristan's safety and emotional well-being were at risk if I left him there. My brother and a counselor agreed immediately that I had to get Tristan out as soon as possible. Moving Tristan to my brother's house temporarily was complicated. He clung to me in the car like he was afraid I was going to disappear. Tristan had been terrified, not just of Monique, but of the conflict, of the yelling, of watching everything fall apart around him. I didn't hear from Tasman for a few days after that. I assumed she was still angry, still distant. When I finally managed to meet her one-on-one at my brother's house, I wasn't sure what to expect. She wasn't cold, but she wasn't warm either. She was careful, like she was testing the waters, measuring how much trust she could give me. She told me she wasn't coming home. She would stay with her uncle permanently. I thought I might break inside right then, but she said something that made me realize I hadn't lost her entirely. She wasn't cutting me off. It was a fragile truce. I didn't hug her, she didn't hug me, but we sat together, and she let me explain some things. I told her about Tristan, about my efforts to get him somewhere safe, about Monique and the decisions that had gone wrong. She listened carefully. She didn't say much, but she allowed me to tell her what I had done and why. And when Tristan eventually begged to see her, she didn't turn him away. She knelt down to him and told him gently that none of this was his fault. I realized then that she had never abandoned her brother. She had been trying to protect herself while also not wanting to traumatize him more than he already was. Monique tried to use this situation to her advantage. She attempted to file for custody of Tristan alone. I didn't respond with threats or arguments. I offered shared parenting schedules only if she entered therapy and agreed to work on her behavior. She refused. She refused multiple times. I was forced to take a harder line, and the temporary placement of Tristan fell entirely to me because Monique had a breakdown in front of mediators. She cried, yelled, and then refused to speak further. At that point, I realized there was nothing I could do to fix her, but I could control the environment for Tristan and Tasman. The emotional cost of all this is impossible to overstate. Tasman and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship, but it's slow. We have weekly dinners, therapy sessions, and conversations that are uncomfortable for both of us. She sets the boundaries now, which makes sense. She's the one who's been through trauma and betrayal, and I can't just decide when or how she should forgive me. Tristan is finally stable. He's adjusting to having a safe environment, even if it's temporary. He's learning that he isn't responsible for his mother's mood swings or my decisions. He's beginning to see that Tasman isn't gone, and that what happened wasn't his fault.